And now to the latest on former President Trump's hush money trial, which concluded closing arguments yesterday in New York.
So the jury is set to begin deliberation possibly this morning with a verdict that could be hours, could be days away. That we don't know. What we do know is that closing arguments were yesterday. So how did they go, and how does this impact potentially the race to the White House? Criminal defense attorney A. Scott Bolden back with us once again.
Good morning.
It's always good to see you, Scott. So yesterday, I mean, these were not brief closing arguments. They went on for several hours each. The defense went first. What were your takeaways from how they were presented to the jury?
I think both sides did a really great job. Donald Trump's lawyer really focused on Michael Cohen and him being the greatest liar of all time. That's not surprising. We knew that. But the defense's view of this is that if you don't believe Michael Cohen, and you shouldn't believe him, then you can't convict Donald Trump. And that's not exactly accurate, because if I were the criminal defense attorney defending Donald Trump, oh my goodness, the thought. But let me just say this, if I were, right? It would be more about attacking the documents and the witnesses that are corroborating what Michael Cohen has done, as opposed to Michael Cohen, because we know he's a certified liar, has been to jail and what have you. The prosecution had to take 4.5 hours because there was a lot of connecting of the dots. You want the jury to really understand the complexity of this case and why it matters and why this is a felony, not just a misdemeanor, and why there should not be any reasonable doubt. They did a really good job of that. A little long, but listen, it takes time.
Well, Trump has said from the beginning, listen, this is election interference. Did you hear anything from the prosecution yesterday that really poked a hole in that argument?
Well, it is about election interference by Donald Trump, by not reporting to the FEC, by reporting these as legal fees. Nobody gets reimbursed for legal fees, one. But two, was to avoid, how was this booked for state taxes and federal tax purposes? Why wasn't it reported to the FEC? Because this was a political contribution. That's kind of complex, if you will, but you can lay it out and understand and take the jury on a journey. And if they've done that with documents and they did that with witnesses, Michael Cohen, government doesn't pick Michael Cohen. Donald Trump picked Michael Cohen because he traffics in this space. And if the jury understands and believes that, and believes in the corroboration, then the prosecution, you're going to look at a prosecution verdict. If they don't, then you're going to look at a defense verdict.
Yeah. I mean, that's to be determined, and you know as well as anybody that you really don't know how to read a jury, you know, in a perfect manner.
Well, they were very attentive. Let me say this. Throughout these 6-7 weeks, one thing that struck me was they were very attentive, at least according to media reports. And that's good for the prosecution, because it's not a simple case to dissect.
Prosecution, and even though these were 4-hour-long closing statements yesterday, prosecution did have the final word, just the way that the court system is set up in New York. Defense went first. Prosecution got the final word. Is that an advantage, because no matter how long the trial is, how many hours you're up there speaking, how many days or weeks it goes on, you're really just trying to reach those 12 people. So that effective closing argument going last, does that give you the advantage?
An emotional advantage. Psychologically feel great about it. But in the end, this jury was pretty attentive. They're going to go through a lot of evidence, go through a lot of witness testimony. The key for jury deliberation is two things. One, what are the instructions on what this other crime was, and whether the government had to prove that the other crime that elevated it to a felony. And two, any questions coming out of that jury room will give you some insight. If they want to talk about reasonable doubt again, then that's a good sign for the defense, because they're taking it seriously.
Sure.
There's a lot to go through. If they come back quick, right? If they deliberate long, they deliberate wrong if you're a prosecutor. If they come back quick, then you can look for a prosecution verdict.
You know, it could be an acquittal, it could be a conviction. If there's a conviction, what do you see happening immediately after?
Well, it's up to the judge. There'll be an immediate motion for him to stay out while the judge considers sentencing. There'll be sentencing motions, right? There'll be a process for that, and then the judge will have the ultimate decision in rendering whether Donald Trump gets incarcerated, gets probation, gets home confinement. Obviously, they'll have to coordinate. If he's going to sentence him to jail, there'll be appeals, and there'll be a stay on whether it's implemented or not. Lots of stuff.
I mean, we're going to wrap it up, but if, and this is a huge if, right? If there is a conviction, and then you know that Donald Trump's attorneys will appeal, can there be enough appeals to push this back beyond the November election date?
Yeah, it could be theoretically, but this is more important politically to our political process and to the presidential race and stuff. Is the GOP going to nominate somebody that's got felony convictions? Is the American public going to vote for somebody that's got American felony convictions?
Those will be the big questions.
They'll be the ultimate arbiter.
Got to find out what the ruling is, what the jurors have to say, and it may come today, may come this week. That we don't know, but we do know we appreciate you, Scott, and appreciate your insight.
It'll be historical no matter what.
And we'll be right on top of it here on Fox 5. Thanks for coming.